Hello, and welcome back to my series of videos on video games I like. I'm going over the Mortal Kombat series now, and it's time for us to delve into the first fully 3D MK fighter, Mortal Kombat 5, which ditched the numbers and went by the title Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. This was the first Mortal Kombat fighter that was released only on consoles, not arcades, and with that, a lot of things changed with the formula. This was the start of the team cramming all sorts of shit into the game to unlock the Crypt and Conquest mode and try and give players a fleshed out single-player experience. Deadly Alliance switched things up a lot by going full 3D after 4's half-measure transition. It also shook things up story-wise with the biggest what the fuck delivered in its opening cutscene. Why is it called the Deadly Alliance? I'm glad you asked. Well, Shang Tsung was pissed off that everyone forgot about him in 4. So he comes up with the great idea to team up with that methed up Kratos-looking guy Quan Chi from 4 to do a tag team and take over the world or whatever. They find this room full of samurai mummies and figure they may as well resurrect it and see what happens. So obviously, Earth heroes are going to have to battle against these dudes, and then Liu Kang is going to come out and he's going to... Holy shit! They straight up break Liu Kang's neck before you get your hands on a controller. While Scorpion and Sub-Zero were more iconic fan favorites, the dude who had been the dude through the series up to that point wasn't even in Mortal Kombat 5. Motherfucker's dead. These two chuckleheads killed him. Why is his head bleeding? I don't know. He's dead. Liu Kang, the Mary Sue, like he always wins, that guy, he's dead, so you know they're serious here. So, I have also a kind of weird history with Deadly Alliance. It came out during our family's video game hiatus, where I didn't have a console and I especially couldn't play anything violent, so when I did get around to playing it, I had already played the next game in the series. I knew about Dead Boy Liu, and I figured all the weird new characters were introduced somewhere along the line during my off years rather than in one single game, but nope, this is where all the weirdos came from. I ended up being super into these 3D era games at the time, at least in part due to how into them my dad was. My dad is way into martial arts, and he and I practiced several of the forms found in the game, like Xingyi, Pigua, and a few others. It was pretty rad to see them represented in a game like this at the time, because up until then I had just seen them on like martial arts videos or whatever. I remember sitting at this main menu waiting for the attract screen to pop up, which would sometimes show a character doing a kata. We thought it was so fucking sick, and it left a hell of an impression after the lackluster MK4. So when we closed out on Mortal Kombat 4, I mentioned how things were really going to shit for the series in the late 90s and early 2000s. Between the second movie, the bad spin-off games, the cartoons, and the other series, Mortal Kombat was in a rough spot. The cow had essentially been milked dry, and was about to go the way of many a 90s arcade hit, brought out behind the woodshed and put out of its misery. In 1998, Old Man Midway saw the booming arcade scene and announced right away that Mortal Kombat 5 was on the way and that it would use the sequel to Zeus chip, Zeus 2. But by the year 2000, after releasing the Grid, Midway stepped away from arcades altogether. Compared to the previous games, the development stretched on for quite a while, 5 years in all. And in the years between 2000 and 2002, there was pretty much nothing going on in Mortal Kombat. Somewhere along the line, though, the team expanded and things changed up drastically for the MK formula. With John Tobias gone, John Vogel stepped up to the lead writing position. Who's John Vogel? You remember. He's this guy who robbed banks, scammed investors, and plotted to murder. No, that's the wrong guy. He's this guy, remember? Behind the mask? They really wanted the new game to usher in a new era of Mortal Kombat with, of course, the big swing in the story and also in terms of gameplay. The game would eventually release in November of 2002 and be a console-only release. The game came out on PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube, which is where I played it because, as I said before, my family pretty much only had Nintendo for most of my childhood. But fortunately, these versions weren't very different from each other. I don't think there was much in terms of exclusivity between these three versions. But, of course, there was no big arcade release as there had been for the previous titles. This meant that there was no big cross-country promo truck tour, no tie-in movie with secret codes, not nearly the same amount of rumor and speculation about hidden characters and secrets as there had been before. There were these ads with the bloody handprints, which were pretty weird, but the big promo grab for this was some shitty new metal! As this was the beginning of the nu metal era, this awful 2000s ass song was put out by Adema, which featured Scorpion in the video. They must have been proud of this because it's right here in the menus of the game. It was also released as a single by Midway and was played live at E3 2002 promoting the game. Shitty as it is, I think it's a good representation of the tone Mortal Kombat was going for in this era. So one of the big things people kept harping on in Mortal Kombat up to that point was the gameplay that was pretty much the same for every character. As I said, 4's combos were universal, and the only thing that made the character unique was their special moves. They went way in the other direction for Deadly Alliance, giving every single character 3 unique fighting styles. You also get full 3D movement rather than just a sidestep. It's not the fluid, motion-captured animation of your Soul Caliburs and Dead or Alives. Well, there are a couple of things that may have borrowed from Dead or Alive, but all of the characters do have realistic animations taken from real martial arts forms, and then a couple of goofy-ass ones that were exclusive to Deadly Alliance. And then they also have one dedicated weapon style. You can throw or otherwise impale a lot of the weapons into your opponent, and while you can't pick up a weapon, you do have a lot more stuff to do with them. I like how the models keep cosmetic damage too, and impaled weapons stay impaled, which is fun visually. In hand-to-hand, everyone has a throw button, and a lot of people have this kind of parry system too. I love how pop-ups launch people in these games and the way they always land on their neck. The biggest weird thing in Deadly Alliance is that there's no dedicated, uppercut. Pretty much in every other game you could press down and high punch, and you would do an uppercut, but that's not in Deadly Alliance. There are pop-ups, but they're different than what we've seen before. The thing is, though, you're still pretty much going to use the combos they give you to do. If you try to be expressive and experiment with cool moves, you're going to get blasted. You have to memorize the combos and get good at reading when to do your specials to win in Deadly Alliance. This fighting system was well received in its time, despite being slow and clunky. There's no running, and no other big meters or anything else to keep track of. You get these power-up moves sometimes, where you take a Mario mushroom, I guess, you get big, but sometimes it's a health refill, sometimes it's a shove. I'm not sure what button does what sometimes, because it's a little confusing. The arcade ladder, or actually it isn't even a ladder in this one, it's kind of a trip around the globe, but it's back to being just a single thing. You can't select difficulty in this screen. This is, in a lot of ways, the simplest game since 2, maybe even 1. Speaking of 1, Test Your Might is back, and there's also a hidden ball in Cup game called Test Your Sight. Most characters have a couple of special moves and 1 fatality, except the hidden characters who have 0. There aren't even any stage fatalities. There's no interactable items except some pillars to run into, and a statue that barfs on you. When you go up to the edge of a stage in Deadly Alliance, force field walls appear and get in the way. You can bounce people off of them for extra damage, but you can't knock people off the stages. So with it being that simple, that's pretty much all there is to see, right? You can get through all this content in like an hour? Fuck no! Without the need to fleece people for quarters, Deadly Alliance was able to make a lot more compelling content for people to do in single player. This was pretty smart and forward-thinking, because it makes Mortal Kombat better for a casual audience than pretty much any other fighting game out there. This was the introduction of the Conquest mode, the single-player mode with progression and stuff. This was a very simple version of Conquest. You play as, or you're represented by this fucking bald dude, nameless, walking along over these mountains. The interesting thing is that it's kind of a pseudo-history lesson too. It has some real history of each character's martial art mixed in with Mortal Kombat lore. This was pretty much a complicated tutorial series for every character, with goofy challenges like make someone bleed 40 pints of blood, or something like that. Some of these Conquest mode stories are more developed and have better challenges than others, but throughout you get some story details for every character. Some of the best nuggets are learning about Johnny Cage's filmography, hearing some backstory from Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and things like that. Completing all 218 of these goddamn tutorials lets you play as the game's secret characters, provided you've unlocked them in the Crypt, which is probably the most important addition to Mortal Kombat going forward. The Crypt was probably the best indicator of Mortal Kombat's new home console philosophy. Deadly Alliance's Crypt contains 676 fucking gravestones to dig up. You have to sit here and wait for the animation to play for each one, so it takes a long time to open up the whole goddamn crypt. You get different colored coins for all the things you do in the game, fighting and doing Test Your Might and Test Your Sight and all of that stuff. And you get to keep those providing that you entered your profile code. I don't know how many times I played through in arcade mode forgetting to log in, and that really sucked. You had to enter your code and log into a profile each time to play and to keep your currency. But this was kind of a neat way to keep track of yourself on a single save file. Each person can have their own profile where you make currency and unlock stuff, and you can even make wagers and stuff when you're playing against someone. A lot of these are straight up bullshit though, these scripts. gravestones. You'll spend like 5,000 red coins to get 12 green coins. You spend 1,000 blue coins to get bullshit, to get nothing. Look at this. This is F you, fuck you. You'll sometimes open a chest to get a hint about where another chest is. You'll spend 12,000 yellow ones to get a grainy dogshit screenshot from Mortal Kombat 3. Like, seriously, look at this. Here's a screenshot from the first game that looks fine. What did they, like, record this off the ring tape or some shit? Look at this terrible quality of this screenshot. I don't know what happened. But this was really kind of cool as a way to explore the different content as a fan. For every shitty just picture of a logo or something, there's a behind-the-scenes note about an older game. You can see old Mortal Kombat action figures, you can see concept art and like early 3D CG renders of stuff. You can unlock and read the entirety of that Mortal Kombat Collector's Edition comic that I talked about in my first Mortal Kombat video, so there's a lot of stuff in here because they had to fill 600 of these goddamn chests. I like looking at these early animation tests. They're like cool from a game development perspective, which is something I'm interested in. And this was the only way to unlock over half the roster and all of the alternate costumes and stages and shit like that. So sometimes you'll be perusing and you'll be like, ah, fuck, Sue How? Bullshit. And then you'll come over here and you'll be like, ah, nice, Sub-Zero covered up his face. There's a legitimate costume, nice. The early 2000s were also way more starved for content. This dumbass Cooking with Scorpion video would probably be released on YouTube and forgotten in like a week now, but since it was something I worked for, and I had to unlock it, and I found it myself, I remember it really vividly, because I watched it over and over again and couldn't wait to like show my friends. I thought it was hilarious, and it's fine, it's a goofy little video, but you know, because I remember it from Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, it's seared into my brain, it's gonna be there forever. Deadly Alliance doesn't have that many fatalities, each character only has one. It has a few that stand out as pretty decent, but it also has a couple that are in the running for the worst. Look at this shit. What the fuck are you doing, Mr. Chi? I like the animation on Scorpion's like head yank thing, and it's kinda silly how Sub-Zero reaches up your butt and pulls out your whole skeleton, but I would say most of these aren't anything to write home about. But when it came out, Deadly Alliance was seen as a revival of the series. I'll talk about Jeff Gerstmann again for a second. He was still at GameSpot at the time, and he complimented the graphics, the animation, and also the roster. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. This shit sold though, like 1 million copies in the first month, and getting the best reviews since Mortal Kombat 2. The soundtrack doesn't have that many notable tracks, but I do like the character select theme and some of the Conquest ambience. I also don't think any of the stage themes are that bad. They're just really industrial and like really dark. I don't know, it's a change up, but it's, I don't know, not terrible. It also has the weird kind of modulated deep voice announcer that I forgot to mention in 4. It's pretty similar delivery to what we had in 4, and it's definitely no Steve Ritchie, but serviceable, and I think it matches the early 2000s grungy tone that they were going for. Fatality. But there were a lot of features missing, too. Combat codes were not around anymore, and neither were most of the secrets outside of the Crypt. They didn't have a tournament mode, they didn't have, like, the practice mode. A lot of stuff that was in the console versions of 4 was absent from this release, sadly. So I'm going to do something a little bit different than I have done before. I'm going to just lump all of the bio and story all together. At this time, there was still kind of hope for the story to, be changed and, have the typical arcade ending that they've done before, but we'll come to know that none of the story that happens here really has any consequence or meaning when we get to the next game. But for now, let's say that all of these are kind of cool and going somewhere, and I'm just going to cover them all since I have done that with the previous games. So the story in Deadly Alliance is set years after the games before, and this tag team of a cool, conniving sorcerer and this dweeby necromancer who stuck around and got out of the Netherrealm after being stranded there in Scorpion's now canon Mortal Kombat 4 ending, they roll up and murder our hero guy and also Shao Kahn, who was just chilling in his chair. I think it's illegal to steal a soul, and Liu Kang's was a big one that got stolen by Shang Tsung. And now they're donating souls to this terracotta army-looking thing to conquer Outworld. The Dragon King is mentioned here as the owner of this undefeatable army. Raiden, who we knew was an Elder God at the end of the last game, relinquishes his Elder God status yet again to take the lead and fight back against Shang-Chi and stop him. So they're definitely going to beat these two bad guys and stop them, for sure, for sure. The good guys are going to win, of course. There's a lot of story to be found in Conquest mode too, but mostly it's individual to each character, so I'll go over these and over their story endings too. The endings are back to being a slideshow with text rather than cutscenes, and Raiden narrates them, all but one. So look at this fresh, new, out-of-the-box character roster. Yeah, half of the guys are grayed out. But again, there's no Season Pass DLC. You don't have to buy them, you just have to unlock them, which I like. That's ideal. You also get some cursory information on everyone at the select screen too. You can see if they're a good guy or a bad guy, and how tall they are, what kind of styles they use, and stuff like that. I'll try to lump all the stories together that are kind of combined, and I'll start with the characters we're familiar with. So, starting out, Sonya is here. She uses Kempo and Taekwondo, and she has these Kali sticks. She uses her perfume kiss thing, and also a kick, and that's the only special move she has. Her alternate costume is like an army lady. Her story is that she's in the Outworld Investigation Agency, and she goes to Outworld in search of Cyrax, who we saw is a good guy now, working also with them, and she's also looking for this dude named Kenshi, who was sent to find him. While she's out destroying portals, the agency is blown up and she's stuck in Outworld. Also, she doesn't like Frost, I guess. That's something that's in her story. In her ending, she finds Kenshi all smashed up and cut up, and she brings him back to Earthrealm, and she's promoted to General. Another little beat we find out is back when she was fighting Kano on that rooftop, we found out she broke Geneva Convention by pretending to be hurt to lure him in and toss him off of that building, so that's fun. Then there's Jax, and we find out that he's the one who sent the boys to Outworld, and in his story we also find out there's some kind of shit-ass traitor in the agency, Su Hao, who blows up headquarters with a mini-nuke, and so now Jax is angry and he's going to hunt down Su Hao. He uses his new super arms to do a piston punch, he can also ground pound, and he busts out a gun, and he says this, "Aw yeah" line over and over again, which I liked as a kid. He practices Muay Thai and Judo in this game, and his weapon is a Tonfa in Deadly Alliance. His alternate costume is also a little rough. I don't know what to think about this one. In his ending, he rips out Su Hao's implant, which is painful, it says, so props for that. Cyrax is kind of intertwined with the only integral part of the story. He's scouting Outworld for the agency when he's ambushed by a lizard he found at his reptile. He meets a friendly vampire who offers to help him in exchange for some orb which is hidden in lava. He can get it because he's like a Cyberman who can go into the lava and she can't, so she needs his help. Being a formal Lin Kuei, he has ninjutsu, and he also practices Sambo, and he has a pulse blade, a laser sword, a lightsaber. He does his bomb, he does this choppy blade called Slice and Dice. He does not have a net, which is a bummer, but in his alternate costume we can see his face, similar to how we saw it in MK4, so that's kinda neat. In his ending, he picks up the orb from the lava, but the lava fucks him up pretty good, but he does get to go back home thanks to the vampire lady, so that's nice. We've got Johnny Cage, who is starring in his new movie, Mortal Kombat: The Death of Johnny Cage, where he keeps dying and being resurrected. They're really making him more of kind of a diva than Jean-Claude Van Damme ever was, so he's getting tired of being in this movie, and when he gets an invite, he actually parachutes to Shang Tsung's island to talk with Raiden. Being a movie star, he practices karate and Jeet Kune Do, which look really good on screen, and he uses a pair of nunchucks. He has his iconic moves like the green thing shadow kick and the green thing force ball. He also has this weird flippy kick thing that looks like silly because the animation is slowed. He wears a suit in his alternate costume. His Conquest mode is filled with references to Johnny Cage movies. You can also find a box set in the Crypt. Some of his movies, 24 Karate Gold, Ninja Mime. He's got a movie just called Hua with a bunch of A's and 2 exclamation points. It's pretty good. In his ending, he leaves production and funds his own indie film, Mortal Kombat: Deadly Alliance. It's pretty silly and kind of meta, but not the most meta thing. We'll see that later. So then we've got Kano, who is actually not dead, as we thought before. He was rescued after we saw him in his little skyscraper incident last time, and he was revived by Motaro, but he was thrown in Shao Kahn's jail for losing to Sonya. Then he gets to be a general by betraying Shiva from killing Shao Kahn, and so he gets promoted, he gets to take over where Motaro was in Outworld, and then things go to shit and he switches sides and starts working for the Deadly Alliance. His first style is Xing Yi, which is one of the ones that my dad and I used to practice. He practices Aikido, and he has butterfly knives. He still has his Kano ball, but it's called a cannonball now, and he does his laser eye, and I really like the smoke effects. I think they look really good for being over 20 years old. His alternate costume is kind of like a reimagining of his Mortal Kombat original costume, which is kind of neat. And if he wasn't Australian before, he's definitely Australian now, as his Conquest text is full of oys and yanks and crikey. It'll say he's knackered, and then they go into other goofy stuff referencing the developers. They'll say like, Vogel him good, wallop him in the Goskies, smab him in the piscina, do it for Jarek. And then they refer to this, they say sorry for using this confusing UK slang. Anyway, he fights back Kitana and Goro's forces. Remember, they were pals at the end of 4, and in his ending, Kano takes Quan Chi's amulet for Shang Tsung, so he's doing more betrayal, but then he takes control of the army for himself to go and kill Sonya. Raiden, as I said, is an Elder God, but he's not allowed to interfere with the Deadly Alliance, so he drops his Elder God status to go down and fight with the boys. Then he does the opening cutscene and takes everyone to Outworld. He uses Nanchuan and Jujitsu, and I guess he got his staff back from fucking Kai, because he has that now. His moves are the Shocker, the Lightning Dash, and the Lightning Bolt. He doesn't have his Abazabaye thing anymore. I don't know why. His alternate costume is like this sexy nipple shirt. It kind of looks weird to see him like that. His Conquest mode is pretty much just him recruiting all of the guys that we know. In his ending, he stops the threat, and he remains on Earth to protect it. So, pretty straightforward. When we get to Sub-Zero, he looks like this in this game. I don't know why he's so old, but he looks like this, and in his story, he battles Sector, who was, the bad red robot, and he becomes the Grandmaster of the new Lin Kuei with an emphasis on being good. Sub agrees to help Raiden to show everyone he's a good guy now, and he has this dragon medallion, which I guess is enhancing his moves. He uses Shotokan and dragon styles, and he has this Kori blade that was made by him. It's an ice sword, which is kind of cool looking and original. He has his freeze move, and he has this new cold shoulder dash, which knocks people around. It's fun to knock people across the screen with his big dragon punch thing, and also with his cold shoulder charge. I like that. He also has this really silly looking move, this ice shaker, where he just shakes his body around, and if you touch him, you turn to ice. I don't know what they were doing with that. The big retcons established in mythologies are reinforced here. Sub-Zero's bro helped Quan Chi get the amulet, and then he was framed for doing that, and so that's why this Sub-Zero is Kuai Liang. In his ending, it's also that he beats the Deadly Alliance, and he goes back to his temple to take care of Frost, who is hurt. He helps to keep Earth safe. That's pretty nice. Scorpion now knows that Quan Chi was the killer of his family, so he's stuck in the 5th plane of the Netherrealm, which makes him stronger, like a hyperbolic time chamber or something. He kept beating Quan Chi's ass, and then when Quan Chi escaped, he escaped at the same time, but he was teleported to a different place. He uses Hapkido, Pigua, and he has a ninja sword, and he, of course, has his spear. He does this backward slip kick, and now he can summon fire under you, which is kind of a neat move. And his alternate costume is pretty much the same, but he has his flaming skull all the time. His ending has him hunting down Quan Chi, but being beaten up by Draman and Moloch and thrown into a Soulnado? Scorpion gets fucked up in his own ending? Scorpion does? That's not right. Alright, so that's the original Mortal Kombat's cast. Then we have Kung Lao. He's the one who finds Liu Kang's body, and he immediately renounces that Shaolin lifestyle that he was going for, and he goes to train in Outworld to get revenge. He studies Mantis, he has Shaolin Fist, and he uses a broadsword. He has his hat throw, and he does this whirlwind kick, which he learned from Bo Raicho, I guess. And his alternate is him wearing his Mortal Kombat 2 suit. His ending has him mercilessly beating the shit out of Shang Tsung. Then he goes back home and he wishes Liu Kang a safe afterlife. Then we have Kitana, who at the beginning is still battling the Outworld fight alongside Goro, who I guess she and the Shokans are best friends now. We saw that they were making an agreement in the Kung Lao ending in 4, but then Goro dies and she gets really sad. So she had been doing pretty well in Edenia, but then she starts having to fight the undead Shang Tsung's army guys and losing all her dudes whose souls float off into the Soulnado. She uses Eagle Claw and Baguazhang, which is another one that I studied with my dad, and she has steel fans in this game. She still does her fan lift, and then she has a move called the Pretty Kick. Her alternate costume is just her without a mask. There's not much in her Conquest mode, but she did try to capture a vampire. She fights Reptile, and she gets training with Bo Raicho. Her ending has the Deadly Alliance beaten, but she's sad about her good, close personal friend Goro being killed, so we get to see a cool Shokan lava funeral thing, and she reflects on Lu's 4 ending when he could have lived in Edenia with her, but instead he stayed home and beefed it. We got Reptile. Reptile is even more fucked up looking in Deadly Alliance because he was originally going to be a different character. Story-wise, this is because he's been away from his people for so long that he reverts more and more into a lizard form. Look at this bullshit. Lizard man looking doofus. I don't like this design at all. When the story begins, he's working as an errand boy for Shao Kahn, so I guess he did not blow the fuck up as previously stated in MK4. He overhears the Deadly Alliance plot and goes to warn him about the Deadly Alliance, but gets distracted by a vampire lady, and by the time he gets back to Shao Kahn, it's too late. So then he goes and stumbles around until he finds that vampire lady again and decides to be a sub. Tiamat was going to be the character who was removed, but the design ended up going to Reptile. He uses Hungar and Crab style, with its only appearance in these 3D era games. I don't think it was in Armageddon's even Create-A-Fighter thing. He also uses this sword called a Kirahashi, I think. It's his race's weapon. It's the lizard people's weapon of choice, I guess. He has his acid spit, and he does a lizard ball, and his alternate costume is pretty much just the same thing, but he has different clothes on. He doesn't have any ninja or human forms in this game. His Conquest story just paints him as a real loser and always fighting imaginary battles in his head. Then he ends up subbing for the vampire lady, and he does what she says. She tasks him with damaging Cyrax's teleporter so that he can't go back to Earthrealm so that he will get the orb for her. Reptile's ending has him rolling up on the Cyrax ending just after the Cyrax ending ends. Then he sees a dragon egg hatching, and then energy busts into Reptile and turns him into the Dragon King? This jobber is the big bad now? I guess. It was pretty big, heavy story implications. Then, of course, Quan Chi returns from 4. He was stuck in the Netherrealm, but then he uses the stolen amulet to escape with the help of Draman and Moloch, his demon friends. He finds the invincible undead army, and he makes a deal with Shang Tsung to get an army for himself in exchange for infinite souls and eternal life for Shang Tsung. He uses Tang Su Do and Eskrima, and 2 broadswords. He can fire his Skull Fireball, and he has this Rising Star move, and his alternate is pretty much just his basic Mortal Kombat 4 suit. We find out that he doesn't have any training or practice, but he's just really good at sorcery. The Conquest mode also details the pact that the 2 dudes made. His ending is bonkers. He and Shang Tsung revive the army and win everything, they do all they set out to do, but then Quan Chi turns off the soul tap and it cuts off Shang Tsung's supply, and he gets Kano to kill Shang Tsung. This unleashes all the souls that were inside his body. Then Quan Chi does another betrayal and sucks off Kano, and then one of these souls that's floating around possesses Kano's dead body, and it turns out it's Liu Kang. Wow, I did not remember this ending from back when I played it back in the day, so this was pretty surprising to me. I wish they had kept this story around, that's pretty funny. Then Shang Tsung comes back as the boss, again, just like in the original Mortal Kombat. He's not as old or as weird as he was in Mortal Kombat, but it is cool to see him as the final boss again. His bio finds him in Shao Kahn's jail for failing in the tournament, but he eventually gets out and he tries to stay young. Then he meets Quan Chi and they make their alliance. His fighting skill comes from, of course, stealing all the souls of people and then using their fighting styles. His fighting styles here are Snake and Crane, and he has a straight sword. He has his fireball, and then he has this weird 3D fire move, which I guess they were just taking advantage of the cool 3D graphics. His alternate costume is kind of his Mortal Kombat 3 suit, but in red. It's a little more original than that, but it's a weird red-looking suit. In his ending, he also uses Kano to betray his partner, but this time Kano doesn't keep the amulet for himself, he gives it to Shang Tsung. So the army follows whoever holds the amulet, and so Shang Tsung tells them to kill Quan Chi. Then Shang Tsung sets out to conquer everyone again, but this time with this undefeatable army. And that's it for returning characters. There's no Fujin, Kai, Jarek, Tanya, or Shinnok from Mortal Kombat 4, and none of the cool guys that were introduced in Mortal Kombat 3 either. The new characters that are here for Deadly Alliance continue the precedent set by MK4, meaning that they all suck. There is one singular, solitary, good character here, and his name is Blind Kenshi. Well, it was Blind Kenshi in development, now it's just Kenshi, and he is blind. If you're a fan of modern Mortal Kombat, you'll probably know him. He's like a swordsman version of Ryu, wandering around just fighting people around the world. He wants to be the best, but Shang Tsung finds out he's a descendant of this warrior king, so Shang Tsung wants to eat those yummy, yummy dead souls, and he does it, making Kenshi blind. Then Kenshi ends up joining the Outworld Investigation Agency before it gets nuked, and he has to fight the Deadly Alliance on his own. He uses Tai Chi, Sanshu, and he has his katana. He does telekinesis, and he does a toss and a slam, which I guess he learned from Ermac. His alternate costume is pretty much a Ryu-looking costume. Even though he's blind, he has his sword, which guides his movement. His Conquest mode adds a little more detail to how he got tricked by Shang Tsung. So he sees some sap surnamed Song who says he can slip him a sleek-ass sword. So he schleps to a subterrane and scoops up a sizable stone, supposing the sword was sleeping. But shit, it was Shang Tsung's shape-shifting shenanigans. He slurps up the souls and slips away, stabbing the swordsman in the side, so to speak. That was like 10 years ago, and Kenshi is now on a vengeance-fueled quest. In his quest, he talks to and learns moves from Ermac, who he sympathizes with. His ending has him slicing up Shang Tsung, and the souls of his ancestors go back into his sword. Then the rest of the characters are kind of an assortment of odds and ends. I guess Frost is the next least worst. She's the winner of the new Lin Kuei tournament, and she's good at fighting, and she's arrogant. She's trained by Sub-Zero, and she goes with him to gain some experience, but she has a secret ulterior motive, it says. Her styles are Tong Bei and Yun Yang, and she made these double daggers out of ice. So she's not cool enough to make a big sword like Sub-Zero, but she can make these smaller double daggers. She has a ground freeze, which is kind of like the puddle that Sub-Zero used to have, and then she has the ice slide. Her alternate costume is just her being unmasked, and it shows more cleavage, and when she wins, Sub-Zero praises her for her help, but she wants to be the Grandmaster herself, so she freezes Sub-Zero and steals his medallion, but she's not strong enough to handle all of that power, and she ends up freezing herself to death. Oops-a-daisy. Li Mei is another forgettable, kind of lame character, but they are bringing her back in the new one, and she looks kinda cool, so maybe that's okay. In Deadly Alliance, she's basically just a fake Melina. She's fighting as a slave, and if she wins, she can free her people. If not, they'll be slaves forever. I think what they're doing is building Shang Tsung's palace. It says that she fought Kano and Shang Tsung, and she almost won before getting caught. So I guess she's supposed to be pretty badass. Her styles are Bajiquan and Liuhe Bafa. And the reason she reminds me of Melina is because she wears pink and she has size. She has this flying fists move, which I guess is supposed to be kind of a bicycle kick, but with punches, and then she has this cartwheel kick you can spam over and over. That's pretty fun. Her alternate costume is just that early 2000s male gaze sort of underwear suit. In her ending, psych, no freedom for her. She's the last soul Shang Tsung needed to revive the super army. She ends up being trapped in a mummy forever. Fuck. Then there's Movado. He's this milquetoast dude from the new faction, the criminal Red Dragon, which has been around for centuries, and the Black Dragon were the splinter group. So I guess all this time, Kano has been hunted by this dweeb. The Deadly Alliance offer up Kano, the last member of the Black Dragon, Cabal and Jarek and whoever else, in exchange for killing Kenshi. His styles are Long Fist and Wing Chun, and then he has these hook swords, which maybe he stole from Cabal? He has these dumb, silly-looking rope moves, and he also uses those in his fatality. His alternate costume is sort of a twink Ryu Hayabusa-looking thing. His Conquest mode has him beating up Jax and Sonya and Kenshi. In his ending, he kills Kano, and then Quan Chi sends him out to kill the Lin Kuei also. So, Bo Raicho is this drunk dude from Outworld, and he's revealed to be the trainer behind several of the guys from the first Mortal Kombat tournament. He also brought drunken boxing to Earth, apparently, so thanks for some of my favorite Jackie Chan movies. He trained Liu Kang and then went back to Outworld. He didn't want to fight in the tournament because his victory would be for Outworld and he wanted Earth to win, so that's why he wasn't around before, I guess, but now he's here to fight the Deadly Alliance. His styles are Drunken Fist and Mijong, and he has a Jojutsu, or a staff, that he uses as well. His special moves are a belly bash, this move called a flip-flop, which is fun. He's got a ground stomp, and then his most iconic move is his barf, his puke puddle, which is basically another version of that Sub-Zero freeze puddle, but much grosser. His alternate costume just has him sitting there with his big old belly poking out. So this dude is supposed to be like hundreds of years old and this old wizened sensei type dude, but he's gross and he burps and farts everywhere and has this big old beer belly sticking out, so I don't know. Are we supposed to like him? In his ending, he's happy to have won, but he's too tough to show emotion in front of his students. He sticks around to teach more dudes with Kung Lao at the academy, and apparently, Outworld liquor ain't shit because he likes Earth's liquor a lot more. There's Nitara, the vampire lady I keep talking about. She sucks. Your blood, but also she sucks as a character. People, I guess, like her, like fans of this era are fans of her. She was even in the 2021 Mortal Kombat movie. Anyway, she's searching for this orb in lava that we've already talked about. She can traverse realms all willy-nilly, but as they do the Cyrax stuff we talked about, she feels like they're being followed. Her styles are Leopard, Fu Jiao Pai, and she has these Kama weapons. Her special moves are a blood spit, and she can also recharge health with her throw. Imagine having a blood-based character, that's pretty gross. One of my biggest memories of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance is my friend spamming the throw back then and recharging his health over and over again. I would occasionally play Mortal Kombat with other people, but it was mostly solo or with my dad. Deadly Alliance was the one my friend and I played when he came to visit, before we had stuff online that we could play. So I remember him coming to visit, and we played, and he liked Nitara because he could recharge health, and I didn't know how to block it, so that was fun. Her alternate costume is, she has like white face paint, I don't know, it's weird looking. I like how her Conquest mode kind of tries to explain vampire lore on Earth. Apparently there was a vampire realm long ago, but Shao Kahn ended up merging that realm with Outworld a long time ago. We also get to see her thoughts in her Conquest mode, and she sees Reptile as kind of a dummy that she can take advantage of. In her ending, she gets her orb and she holds up her side of the deal. Then she throws the orb on the ground, busting it open, and she wakes up in Vampire Land for the first time. Then we have the real suck-ass characters like Draman. He's just this yucky Netherrealm Oni dude. He's one of the two who help Quan Chi fight off Scorpion when he says he'll help them escape the Netherrealm. Then, Quan Chi being who he is, he betrays them and leaves the Netherrealm without them. But both of these Oni escape too, and they're hunting him down. They're like right behind him. This guy is kind of like Pigpen from Charlie Brown. He's got stink lines and flies buzzing all around him at all times. He's got his arm in this big iron club, and he says that he just wants to cause pain and suffering to everyone. He's got exposed, putrid flesh everywhere, and he's just really gross. At one point in his life, he was just a regular dude, but eons in the Netherrealm, I guess, twisted him up and made him all weird. Anyway, he's out strolling or something in the Netherrealm when Quan Chi is over in the distance crying out and begging for help, so he and Moloch go and help Quan Chi fight off Scorpion when Quan Chi says that he'll help them escape the Netherrealm. His styles are just brute force. He has this Netherrealm style, he has Oni style, and then he uses his iron club as his third form. He has a projectile where he throws flies at you, he uses his arm as a propeller, and he has a super uppercut. His alternate costume is just a gross one with no mask. After he and Moloch escape the Netherrealm, they stick to the woods and eat people from a village. In Draman's ending, Shang Tsung manages to turn him against Quan Chi. Draman goes into a room and comes out altered, it says. They never did anything with this though, I don't think. And then there's Su Hao. This is the worst 3D era character according to everyone that ever saw him, and everyone knows it. He's the other Red Dragon Man, and somehow he gets to work in the Special Forces, and he's the one who set the nuke in HQ. Su Hao is like they took shitty Jarek from Mortal Kombat 4, who was already a copy of Kano, and then they decided to copy Jarek, but no. He has a chest implant this time. Anyway, I really hate him. He ends up going to Outworld. His forms are Shuai Chao and Wrestling, and then he has these Sun Moon Blades. He has this Stomp move and this Clap move, and his alternate costume is him, but he's bald. His ending is another one where the Deadly Alliance is attacking each other. He talks to Mavado and gets a new mission, kill Shang Tsung. The only non-playable boss-type character in Deadly Alliance is Moloch. He's the other Oni. He sucks to fight. He spams attacks, but I don't think he is as bad as like original Goro or Kintaro, but he still sucks to fight. Then there are 2 secret hidden characters you get for doing all of the Conquest mode. I don't think I ever did this before. You get mocap, so you can finally play as Carlos Pesina. We can say how motion capture technology improved in the 5 years since Mortal Kombat 4's development. He's a joke character, but he is given a bio and an ending. So he's a teacher from Chicago who worked with Johnny Cage on his movie. Mocap is just given styles and moves from other characters, and he doesn't have a weapon. He has a fireball, he has a flip kick, and he has a charge punch, and then he uses karate, tai chi, and taekwondo. His ending is the meta thing I was talking about earlier. He's the talent in Johnny Cage's movie Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, and then he goes to work for Midway Games to be in the game adaptation of the Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance movie. And then the other secret character is Blaze, the dude from the background in Mortal Kombat 2 back then who was fighting Hornbuckle. Remember him? Wow, it's pretty cool that they brought back that reference. I mean, it would be weird if he was a main cast member, so it's cool that he's kind of hidden and secret back here. He's not prominent in the story or anything, but that's neat. He's described as an elemental, and he's on some kind of quest in Outworld. He was ambushed on a bridge by Dragon King's holy men. His styles are Hapkido, Jeet Kune Do, and Xing Yi, which we've seen before, and he has a flame ball, an uppercut, and a charge. He'd be looking a bit like Cinder from Killer Instinct. His ending says that he was a slave guarding the egg chamber, but once it hatches, he's free, and so he gets back to his quest. Unfortunately, there's no have a good day ending like in 1 or 2. It would be fun to hear Raiden say that. There were going to be 2 other characters that I know of, Tiamat and Baphomet, who were this lizard guy who ended up taking the form of Reptile, and then Baphomet, the name of like the real actual Satanist thing, so maybe they took him about to avoid super controversy. You can find his concept sketch though. They also considered putting Shao Kahn in here, and Kai from MK4, and Dairu, who wasn't in this, but he will be in the next one. But you see what I'm saying? Like, a lot of these kind of go nowhere. We already know that these endings aren't always canon, but so many of these are definitely not canon, and the ones that are important are all kind of intertwined, so 3 or 4 characters have like the same ending, pretty much. I really do like some of the stages in Deadly Alliance. Unlike 4, none of the stages are remakes or reimaginings. The game has a bunch of new and original stages. You have to unlock many of them. Some of them I don't even know if I had before when I played this originally. Some of the stages are specifically supposed to be character stages this time too. Also, I guess I'll mention it here, I really like how the blood splatter stays on the ground now. I love the blood effects in this game. Look at this shit. The first stage I remember is the Wuxi Academy, where Liu Kang died. You see it right in that opening cutscene. It's got these big dude statues around suspending the platform in the middle, and this is where Kung Lao and Bo Raicho are both supposed to be from. Then you've got your new and improved Lin Kuei Temple. It's just this ancient temple that Sub-Zero stumbled upon, I guess, and he took it over for himself. You've got your drum arena here. It's got these drummers all around drumming. And in the description it says that if you tie, this biggest drummer will come out and challenge both of you. Then you've got your acid bath. It's kind of the Deadly Alliance take on the Dead Pool, but it has these acid Buddhas barfing up on you, and this is the only stage that can kill you in this game. This is where the Deadly Alliance made their agreement in the opening cutscene. You've got this Kuatan Palace. It's this place surrounded all by lava, and it's got these Shokan heads everywhere. This is where Goro's, actually fake, body is buried in that ending. You've got your portal here, the Celestial Portal. This is where the Deadly Alliance got to Earth to kill Liu Kang. Then you have your kind of boss stages. They're just regular stages, but this is where, since the bosses are regular guys, this is where you'll fight them. It's kind of weird that Quan Chi and Shang Tsung are just regular dudes in this game. They don't even have a special death animation. You can fatality them right before the ending. After Boone said that he regretted that with Shinnok in 4, but anyway, they're much cooler than Shinnok. Quan Chi has his fortress, and in this game it's in Outworld. We'll see it has lasers down below, but that's for later. Then we have Shang Tsung's palace, which we saw being built by Li Mei's people in her bio. This is the new location of the army that they found, and it also has this Solnado in the background. Then if you dig around in the crypt, they have all of these unlockable stages, of which there are a ton. We have the palace grounds, which is right outside of this palace. You can see the moon, and you can see the souls kind of getting sucked into the palace. You have the Dragonfly. This is a really cool stage. It's this flying transport with a really neat design. It's only in Deadly Alliance, and I don't think I see it anywhere else. This appears in Frost's ending, where she betrays Sub-Zero. Here are the Sarna ruins. They're in Outworld, just away from the Dragon King's pyramid. It's got this cool tornado in the background, and also that pyramid. And then the Lost Tomb, with this thing in the background that looks like a big version of that amulet. It's got these statues to shatter, and it's just outside of this Sarna ruin stage. In the arcade ladder, you can go to Moloch's lair, but you can unlock it as a playable stage too. This is where Moloch is from, and it's in Shang Tsung's basement. Apparently sometimes this face comes up in the door back here. We've got this Lung Hai Temple. It's a cool water stage with dudes all around rowing their boat. It says that warriors are sacrificed to this dragon in the background that kind of looks like that dragon statue from the original Mortal Kombat. Then you've got your House of Pikara. This is right above where Kenshi got tricked by Shang Tsung and went blind. Kind of looks like the church stage. This is Shang Tsung's nether ship. I really like this one too. It's what he used to transport the army. In this game, you play on the outer deck up on top, but you might go inside the ship later. And then the last stage is this lava shrine, which is Blaze's place. It's inside that volcano with the egg and where Cyrox went, and where the egg hatched the Dragon King. So this is a pretty important stage, I guess. By the way, I keep calling them stages. I guess that's just an old guy thing. I think they're supposed to be called arenas. I don't know. I keep calling them stages. There was a Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance on the Game Boy Advance as well. It's weird looking and doesn't have 3D gameplay. The graphics are all sprite-based. But then Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition came out a year later, which did have 3D gameplay. It's bad, but it did add survival, tag team, and practice modes, along with new weapon-based fatalities. It also added Sector, Noob Saibot, and Serena, who we don't really know because she was from Mythologies. But it added those 3 characters to the roster. And that's pretty much a wrap on Deadly Alliance. Overall, I like this game, but it doesn't have the aesthetic or roster or gameplay that I really look for. I loved it back in the day, but not as much as its sequels. In a way, it's kind of a new start, which we'll continue to see later on. It's fun and goofy, but it's slower and more technical than the previous pick-up-and-play games. There's so much early 2000s nostalgia here, and you can spend so many hours opening chests and finishing the kind of boring Conquest mode, so if you're looking just to sink a bunch of time into, you could do a lot worse. I like it, but it's also not as easy to find and play now, legally. I have my old copies, and it's possible to emulate them as well, but there's no downloadable version on modern stores anywhere. I think it would be really cool if they would re-release this somewhere on modern platforms, but I don't know if they can. I guess, anyway, I'll say that it's better than Mortal Kombat 4. Still, Mortal Kombat 3 is still the winner? Why did I put that over 2? I guess it played a little better. I still think I like 2 the most, but anyway, I'll say 3 is the winner, 2 is here, and then I'll put this over Mortal Kombat 4. I want to genuinely say thanks a lot for watching. I'm not big and super popular, yet at least, maybe in the future, but I like doing this a lot, and it's really awesome to see people coming back and checking out the stuff I made. I don't know if it would have been smarter to start a new channel and throw these on there, but I'm kind of just using the account I've had for a lot of years with all my old shitty animation and bullshit on it, and I don't know, I think I'll just keep using this channel. Thanks so much for coming, and I'll see you next time for Deception. Take care out there, and